This is episode 3, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Krish, who has in fact just recently graduated from high school. In today's episode, we talked about some of the challenges and pressures that he faced growing up around the themes of male dominance, toxic masculinity. He also shared some of his reflections on how he thinks boys should be raised and brought up and guided through the themes and ideas of gender roles from a very early age. He also talked about finding the perfect balance between being caring and empathetic while also knowing how to control and when to control your emotions. It's a very insightful conversation. It sheds light on some of the pressures that boys can face while growing up, and some of the solutions that we can have to make it a little bit easier for them. And yeah, so without any further ado, let's dive right in. Hi, Krish. Welcome to my podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So before we get started, do you mind just introducing yourself to anybody who's listening? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you like to do.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Krish Kalam. I am currently 17 years old, and as of today, I've entered my final year of high school. Um, as to what I like to do, I like to read books, I like to play sports, and I like to go to the gym.
Right. So sometimes do you feel like your hobbies are influenced by your gender, or sometimes do you feel that your hobbies are something that society doesn't expect from you or does expect from you just based off your gender?
I would agree in respect to some hobbies. So, when it comes to basketball, it's more not my gender, it's more about my height. And because I'm a little bit taller than average height, people expect me to play basketball. But I also have a hobby which I picked up from my mom about cooking. And I kind of kept it low key. And when I eventually brought it up with my friends that I could cook, and when they come for a sleepover or when they come to hang out, I could cook for them instead of just ordering out all the time. And they were quite surprised. And moreover, they didn't really believe in my ability. So yeah, you could say um, my hobbies and people's perceptions of them are influenced by my gender.
Right. And do you ever feel like, just sort of in public or at a gathering, for example, like you said, do you ever feel any sort of pressure to behave a certain way because you're a boy? For example, being told to like man up or not cry or, act tough because you're a boy?
I think it would depend on the scenario. So if it would be at something very at an occasion which is very sad in nature, like a funeral, I think crying at that point. I never really been told by anyone to stop crying or to stop weeping for your loved one.
Mm-hmm.
But in other scenarios, if you were to have guest overs, and I didn't really know the guest, and they won't really relate to me in any way, I would still be told to be the man of the house, invite the guests in, give them some water, talk to them before my parents actually come.
Mm-hmm.
Converse.
Right. And so I feel like a lot of boys feel sort of similar, more or less the same. It usually comes from their families, and well, sometimes they're taught, that just because you're a boy, you shouldn't do things that a girl would do, or maybe if you're a girl, that's too manly for you, right? Sometimes people get told that. And so, do you think that boys should be taught to be empathetic in the same way that girls are, or do you think that it's gonna be seen as a soft quality for boys and it just shouldn't happen?
I think boys should be taught to be empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Compared to the common gender norm where boys should be the leaders, they should be the people who deliver.
Right.
I think men should have a soft side, and being tough all year round could not only have severe effects on like your mental health, because you're trying to hide feelings, especially when you're feeling sad, even though you are feeling sad. So I think boys should have an empathetic side, and moreover, they should be able to console somebody, to be able to comfort their children when they're going through a bad time or when they're having a difficult time at school. So yeah, I think boys should be able to be a little soft at times.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit about positive influences. So now, has there ever been somebody, a person in your life, maybe a teacher, maybe your parents, maybe a friend, maybe just any relative, who helped you see gender norms and the problem around gender through a more equal perspective?
Through which equal perspective?
Yeah, like so that you were able to understand this issue better.
Okay, yeah, there is somebody. She's my friend. Her name's Gopika, and she's actually quite involved with gender norms, and she's been to a lot of debates as well as a lot of conferences where they talked about how gender roles are being normalized in a society today, where it's being people are rapidly developing, and a lot of people are adopting identities. And Gopika actually taught me a lot in class because before compared to today, I was quite pro tough man, pro not showing emotions, pro um, being the leader. And over time, after spending like several days talking to her and her explaining to me what is required and how it's necessary for a man to be empathetic, I think she changed my perspective on the whole situation completely. And now I feel like I'm kind of in the center. It's not required for a man to be overly empathetic, overly soft, but it's also wrong for a man to be too tough, to be stoic in a sense. But yeah.
That's actually a really good point because a lot of the times when I talk to other people about this, they usually, when I ask them a similar question, they say that there was either a parent or maybe a relative. But you sharing something about your friend teaching you more about this issue is sort of like eye opening because for some people, they usually think that it has to be an adult. Like, come on, how can it be any of my friends? But a lot of the times, even our friends are really like observative and we can learn a lot by just talking to them.
Yeah,
um
and I agree. It's because a lot of people place on parents, like because they're parents, because they're adults, they automatically assume that they're mature
yeah.
and that their views, because of their experiences, are more qualified or more credible. But I have to disagree because if your parent doesn't work in a sector where there's a lot of gender inequality, I don't think they really have that much of a right as compared to somebody who's constantly going out and talking about this, trying to convince people and going to conferences, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. No, that's very true. So another term that comes up often in conversations like this is toxic masculinity, right? So in your own words, what does that mean to you?
Okay, so um, I'd say it's like the cultural norms and like I guess behaviors that associated with masculinity. So those behaviors that like promote dominance, emotional suppression, aggression, and maybe even like devaluation of traits that are considered feminine.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically discourages men from expressing like vulnerability, sorry, or seeking help from other people.
Okay. And so that brings us to this topic of male loneliness, right? So, do you think that boys sometimes struggle to talk about their feelings or find support? Maybe even if they have like a really big friend group and they have like so many connections, so many friends, but often sometimes they go home or like they just don't feel confident enough to talk to anybody about their feelings, about just even how their day was. Sometimes it seems like a very small thing, but sometimes it does happen.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I think it's because um, as we've been raised, because I don't know my terms, but I think we're Gen Z. As a generation itself, we've been exposed to a lot of toxic masculinity, and it might depend on your background, but I think a lot of boys and young teenagers and even young adults struggle with opening up about their feelings to some of their friends, even though they might be their best friends. It's because of their pride, really. And that's, I think, a part of toxic masculinity is not showing weakness, is not showing that you're lower than somebody else by expressing your feelings, how you're sad, what happened in your day, etc. And I think that owes a lot to the like the situation or the condition of society that we were brought up in.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so my last question for you is, so you mentioned that you just finished high school. If there was one piece of advice that you could give to younger boys, or maybe even just younger kids going into middle school, into high school, um, on about, not really giving too much of their time to what people say or what people think about you and how people treat you, or sort of like these barriers they put around you, what would you say to them?
That's actually a great question because I have some experience with that. In replies to that, I'd say only expect or only change yourself according to the opinions of the people you value. So if you try to take opinions from strangers, from people you don't really know that well, might be in your grade, they might be your mutual friends. I would say don't really take that into account. Really take the opinions and how the people who are really close to you and know you on a personal level, take their opinions and take their advice, and don't consider the opinions of strangers because they don't know you on a deeper level and they really can't relate, or whatever they do say about you is not really credible.
Thank you so much for listening to the third episode of the Broken Bias podcast. Today, Krish highlighted some of the major challenges that boys can face while growing up that can often go unnoticed. He also reflected on, giving younger boys a bit more education to help them become more balanced and self aware about topics like these and their thoughts on gender roles. It sparked some sort of thought in my head itself about what changes I can bring to my own lifestyle that can benefit myself and also my peers. I hope that it did the same for you. Maybe ignited some conversations between you and your friends and maybe you and your families about this topic. Um, that's it for today. Stay tuned for the next episode where we bring on another powerful voice and talk about similar topics. Until then, take care and see you in the next one.